I don't think I've ever felt this kind of exhaustion before. It wasn't just the kind that lives in your body, it was the kind that seeps into your bones, that quiet kind of ache that doesn't go away even when you rest. My name is Sarah Miller. I'm 54 years old, a nurse, and a mother of 2. And tonight, I was coming home from the hospital, not as a nurse, but as a mother who'd spent 5 straight nights at her son's bedside. If you're listening to this, please, don't go anywhere. Stay with me till the end, because what I heard that night inside my own home, I still can't explain. And before we go further, please like, subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts below. Sometimes, the stories that break us the most are the ones that come from the quietest places. The key clicked in the lock with a dull sound. I pushed the door open, half expecting to smell the faint trace of cinnamon candles or hear the soft hum of the television like always. But the house was silent. Too silent. I stepped inside, my shoes brushing against the welcome mat, and the sound seemed to echo. The lights felt dimmer somehow. The air, heavier. I let my bag drop to the floor. It hit with a soft thud that almost startled me. All I could think about was water. Cold water, straight from the fridge. I hadn't eaten properly in days. Every breath felt like a sigh too heavy to release. As I walked through the living room, my hand brushed against the couch arm. It was cold. Usually by this hour, Mark would have left a lamp on. But tonight, the entire house looked like it was holding its breath. I tried to shake it off. You're tired, Sarah. Just tired. You've been hearing monitors beeping for days. That's all it is. Silence feels strange because you forgot what it sounds like. I walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. The soft white light spilled across the floor, and for a moment, it felt normal. The hum of the motor, the faint chill of the air. I closed my eyes. Just breathe, I whispered to myself. That's when it happened. A sound. Soft, distant, but clear. Like something dragging lightly across the wooden floor. I froze. My fingers still gripping the fridge handle. I turned my head slowly, every muscle tight, every heartbeat too loud. Mark. My voice came out weak, uncertain. No answer. The sound came again, closer this time. It wasn't footsteps. It wasn't the wind. It was slower, cautious. Like someone was moving deliberately, not wanting to be heard. I swallowed hard, forcing a laugh that didn't sound like me. It's probably the pipes. It's an old house. But I didn't believe that. The lights flickered once. Just once. And in that flicker, the brief second of darkness, I thought I saw movement. Something. Someone. I blinked. The light steadied again. Nothing. Emily. I called out next, my voice shaking. Honey, is that you? Still nothing. My daughter was supposed to be at her dorm, studying for exams. But what if she'd come home early? What if? No. I'd have heard the car. The silence pressed in around me. The fridge hummed steadily behind my back, the only sound left. Then. A whisper. So soft, I almost thought I imagined it. Sarah. My name. The air in my chest froze. I turned slowly, scanning the dark hallway that led toward the bedrooms. Who's there? No reply. The clock on the wall ticked, each second too long, too loud. Mark, this isn't funny, I said, trying to sound firm, but my voice trembled halfway through. Nothing. I took one step forward. Then another. The floor creaked beneath me. That's when I noticed the faint outline of the basement door, slightly open. I was sure I had locked it that morning before leaving. The whisper came again. This time, closer. Sarah. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. But instead, I just stood there, frozen between fear and disbelief. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was so exhausted that my mind was slipping. But deep down, I knew. Something was wrong in that house. Something was watching me. My breath caught as I reached for the light switch. The bulb flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room whole. And in that black silence, I heard it again. Right behind me. A slow, steady exhale. Someone was breathing. Right there. behind me. I didn't turn around right away. For a few long seconds, I just stood there, frozen, my back still to the darkness behind me. My mind whispered a dozen explanations, the air vent, the fridge motor, maybe even my own breath echoing, but my body knew better. That sound, it had rhythm. Life. Hello. I whispered again. My voice barely left my lips. No answer. The refrigerator hummed quietly, casting a weak glow over the floor tiles. My reflection shimmered faintly in the metal handle, pale, trembling, eyes wide with a kind of fear I hadn't felt in years. I finally forced myself to turn around. Slowly. 1 inch at a time. Nothing. Just the hallway stretching out like a tunnel, the shadows spilling from the corners. The clock on the wall ticked again, louder than before. Tick. 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 Each second felt like a heartbeat I didn't own anymore. Maybe it's the wind, I muttered, trying to sound sane. My lips were dry, my throat tight. But then the light above the sink flickered once. Twice. And the sound came again, this time, from the living room. A faint creak, followed by something like footsteps, small, hesitant, uneven. I clenched my hands together to stop them from shaking. My hospital ID still hung from my wrist, the plastic tag cold against my skin. It was almost absurd. I could comfort dying patients every day, but in my own house, I was terrified of my own shadow. Emily, I called, my voice quivering. Sweetheart, are you home? Silence. Only the soft buzz of the refrigerator answered me. My heart started to pound harder. The sound was coming closer, down the hallway, 1 step at a time. The floorboards moaned under invisible weight. I backed up until my shoulder brushed the counter. The cool surface grounded me just enough to breathe. Then came another sound. Faint. Metallic. Like something lightly tapping against a doorframe. Mark. I said, weaker this time. Mark, if that's you, this isn't funny. The air didn't move. I could hear my pulse behind my ears. Thud, thud, thud. Then the light above me flickered again, and I swore I saw a shadow, tall, slight, pass across the end of the hall. I gasped and nearly dropped my phone as I grabbed it from my pocket. The screen lit up my hands, trembling and slick with sweat. I dialed Mark's number first, straight to voicemail. Then Emily's, same thing. That's when I noticed the time. 2:47 a.m. Everyone was asleep somewhere else. Except me. I took one small step toward the hallway. My voice barely held together. Who's there? No answer. I could hear the old wall clock in the dining room. Its ticking was too loud, too deliberate, almost mocking. Then, something soft scraped across the floor again. My knees almost gave out. Sarah. My name again. Whispered this time from the far end of the hall. But there was something different. It wasn't cruel, not playful either. It was broken. Like someone begging to be heard. I swallowed hard. Who are you? No reply. Only the faint sound of a door hinge creaking, the door to my son's room. The one that should have been shut tight. I stepped forward before I could stop myself. My heartbeat drummed inside my throat. The hallway stretched longer with every step, the shadows reaching toward me. The door moved slowly, inch by inch, opening on its own. Stop, I whispered. I don't know if I was speaking to the door, or to my own trembling feet. I reached the doorway and touched the light switch. The bulb flickered, once, twice, then came alive. The room looked exactly as we'd left it, neat, still, untouched. His drawings pinned to the corkboard. The empty bed neatly made. The faint smell of detergent and medicine still lingering. And yet, it felt occupied. I could swear I heard breathing. A slow, shallow rhythm coming from somewhere near the window. Is someone here? My voice was barely a whisper. Nothing. Then a sudden gust of air brushed past me. The curtains fluttered, and my heart nearly stopped. The window was closed. I turned back toward the door, shaking, clutching my phone like a weapon. The hallway behind me was dark again. The kitchen light had gone out completely. I could feel tears starting to sting my eyes. You're tired, Sarah. You're losing it, I told myself. Just go to bed. You need rest. But as I took one step out of the room, I heard it, faint but clear, the sound of footsteps again. Only this time, they weren't retreating. They were following me. My throat closed up. I started backing toward the kitchen, my pulse racing so fast I could barely breathe. Please, I whispered, not even sure who I was pleading with. Please, stop. The footsteps stopped. The house fell silent again, utterly, painfully silent. And then, as if the silence itself breathed, I heard one final sound. The soft click of a door latch, closing. The basement door. For a long moment, I couldn't move. The sound of that basement door clicking shut still echoed inside my head, soft, deliberate, final. It was the kind of sound that doesn't belong in the middle of the night, in a house that's supposed to be asleep. My breathing came out uneven, shaky. Every muscle in my body screamed for me to run, out of the house, into the street, anywhere but here, but something deeper, heavier, kept me frozen. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe it was guilt. I had avoided that basement for months. Ever since that night. The night I still couldn't bring myself to say out loud. I stepped closer to the hallway again, my bare feet brushing against the cold wooden floor. The house felt different now, like it was aware of me, listening. Even the air seemed thicker. My hand hovered over the basement door handle. It was ice cold. My reflection in the small brass knob looked pale and hollow-eyed. For a second, I thought about turning back, locking myself in my room, pretending none of this was happening. But something inside me whispered, not this time. So, I turned the handle. The door creaked open with a long, tired groan. The smell hit me first, dust, damp wood, and something faintly metallic. I fumbled for the light switch on the wall. Click. Nothing. The bulb was dead. A low sigh escaped me as I grabbed my phone again, turning on the flashlight. The thin beam cut through the darkness, carving out a narrow tunnel of light down the steps. Why are you doing this, Sarah? I whispered to myself. You know better. But my feet had already decided for me. Step by step, I descended. Each creak of the wooden stairs felt louder than the last, like the house itself was warning me to stop. The air grew colder. Still. When I reached the bottom, I paused. The light from my phone trembled with my hands. The basement was exactly as I'd left it, boxes stacked in the corner, old furniture covered in white sheets, the washing machine quiet in the back. Nothing out of place. Nothing, except the toy. Right in the middle of the floor. A small, red fire truck. Its paint chipped, its wheels still smeared with a faint line of dried mud. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. That toy hadn't been there before. It couldn't be. I remembered picking it up months ago, placing it in the storage box labeled Ethan's things. I remembered how heavy my hands had felt doing it. How I'd cried quietly afterward, sitting right here on this cold floor, whispering to a child who would never answer me again. Ethan. My voice cracked as I said his name. It was the first time I'd said it out loud in weeks. The air shifted, almost imperceptibly, as if something in the darkness responded. I crouched down slowly, the flashlight still aimed at the toy. My fingers brushed the dust on its surface. It was warm. I jerked my hand back. My chest tightened. Okay, this isn't real, I whispered. You're just tired. You're tired. But then I heard it, faint and unmistakable, the sound of a small laugh. A child's laugh. Soft. Brief. And it came from right behind me. My heart stopped. I spun around so fast I almost dropped my phone. The light danced wildly across the walls, catching on boxes, metal pipes, shadows. But nothing was there. No one. Just the sound of my own ragged breathing filling the silence. I took a step backward, my knees nearly giving way. Ethan. I whispered again, my voice trembling. Baby, is that you? For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then, a whisper. Mom. I froze. It was his voice. I'd know it anywhere. Faint, fragile, like it was coming through water. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I even realized it. Sweetheart. My voice broke. Where are you? No answer this time, only the faint sound of something rolling across the floor. The fire truck. It moved. Just an inch. But enough. I stepped closer, shaking all over, the tears falling freely now. "Please," I whispered, my voice cracking into the dark. "Please, let me see you." The air grew heavier again. And then, for a brief heartbeat, the flashlight flickered, and in that half-second of light, I thought I saw him. A small figure at the far end of the room. Standing still. Watching me. Then the light went out. Darkness swallowed everything. I gasped, fumbling with the phone, but my fingers wouldn't work. I could hear the faint sound of that laugh again, echoing, fading, distant now. "Ethan!" I screamed into the dark. "Ethan, please." Nothing. Only silence. When the flashlight came back on, the figure was gone. The room was empty again, still and cold. The fire truck lay on its side, motionless. I fell to my knees, shaking uncontrollably. My sobs filled the room, breaking the stillness that had lingered for too long. It wasn't grief that scared me anymore. It was the possibility that what I'd heard, what I'd felt, might not have been a dream. I stayed there on the basement floor until the first hint of dawn began to paint the walls faint gray. When I finally stood, my legs felt hollow. I looked back one last time before turning off the light. The fire truck was gone. And somewhere in the quiet distance, I could swear I heard his voice one last time, soft, barely audible. "Don't go." Then silence again. I closed the door gently behind me and leaned against it, my hands trembling. For the first time in months, I whispered something I hadn't said since the funeral, something that felt half prayer, half confession. "I miss you, baby. I miss you every single day." Here's your fully expanded Chapter 4, The Voice on the Recording, written in the same emotional, slow-paced, suspenseful, cinematic storytelling voice, ready for AI narration, continuing seamlessly from the previous chapter, with Sarah Miller as the 54-year-old mother narrator. Chapter 4, The Voice on the Recording. Almost equals 900 words. Morning light spilled weakly through the curtains, brushing against the faded wallpaper like it was afraid to touch anything in this house. My body ached from exhaustion, but sleep had never really come, just flashes of fear, shadows moving behind my eyelids, and that faint sound I could still hear echoing somewhere deep inside me. I'm Sarah Miller, 54 years old, a mother who used to think she knew what home felt like. But after last night, I'm not so sure anymore. The house was too still. Even the hum of the refrigerator sounded louder than it should. I stood in the kitchen, clutching my coffee cup, watching the steam rise and curl like something alive. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe the exhaustion from the hospital and the endless nights had finally twisted my mind. But then, I saw my phone blinking on the counter. A missed call. I frowned. It was from an unknown number. And right below it, a voice message. My thumb hovered over the screen for a moment. Part of me didn't want to press play. But curiosity, fear, they both had a way of winning over reason. I tapped the message. At first, all I heard was static. Then, a faint shuffle. Breathing. Someone whispering. "Sarah. My name." Said softly, like a secret. I froze. The phone trembled in my hand, my heart beating so fast it felt like the sound was coming from inside me. I replayed it again, pressing the phone to my ear this time. The whisper was clearer now. "Sarah, don't trust him." That's all. Just those words. Then silence. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the screen. I wanted to believe it was a prank. Some wrong number. But deep inside, something cold and heavy began to rise, because that voice, it sounded familiar. Like my son's. But he was at the hospital. And I had just spoken to the nurse last night. He was stable. Sleeping. So how could he? I replayed the message again, desperate to prove myself wrong. But every time, the same chilling words slipped through the static. "Sarah, don't trust him." I couldn't breathe. I turned toward the fridge, maybe out of instinct, maybe out of madness. That same sound from last night still lingered in my mind. The hum grew louder. The same rhythmic pulse that had haunted me before. My fingers trembled as I reached for the door handle, But this time, I didn't open it. I just stood there, listening. Then, from behind me, a soft click. The front door. My stomach dropped. "Mark!" I called out, my voice cracking. No answer. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Moving down the hallway. My husband was supposed to be at work. He'd left early, or so he said. But those steps, they sounded deliberate. Measured. I set the coffee cup down and picked up my phone again, turning the volume all the way up. The message still played faintly in the background, looping, "Don't trust him." Then the footsteps stopped. Right behind me. I turned, and there he was. Mark stood in the doorway, his tie loosened, his eyes unreadable. "Sarah," he said quietly, almost too calm. "You're up early." My heart hammered. I wanted to ask 100 questions, but the words tangled in my throat. "You said you had a meeting," I whispered. He smiled faintly. "It got cancelled." Something in his tone didn't match his face. The way his hand stayed tucked in his pocket, the faint tremor at the edge of his smile, none of it felt right. And then my phone buzzed again. A text. From that same unknown number. I glanced down. The message read, "He's lying." My breath caught. I looked up slowly, and he was already watching me. "Who are you talking to?" he asked, his voice firmer now. I shook my head. "No one. Just spam." He stepped closer. "Spam doesn't make you shake like that." My fingers tightened around the phone. "You're scaring me, Mark." He paused, studying my face, then laughed softly, but there was no warmth in it. "You've been through a lot, Sarah. Maybe you need rest. All that time at the hospital, it's starting to mess with your head." He reached for the phone, but I stepped back instinctively. His expression shifted, irritation flashing just long enough for me to see it. That's when I realized something. The message had been deleted. Right before my eyes. The screen went blank. The notification vanished. He had somehow done it. Or known how to. "See," he said softly. "Nothing there." I stared at him, unable to find my voice. For a moment, neither of us moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the fridge again, the same haunting rhythm that had started all of this. Finally, I forced myself to speak. "If you think I'm crazy, then why are you afraid of what's on my phone?" He didn't answer. He just turned and walked away, leaving that question hanging in the air like a ghost. And that's when I saw it, just beside the kitchen counter, half hidden under the table. A folded piece of paper. It hadn't been there before. My name written on it. In my son's handwriting. My hands shook as I unfolded it. One single sentence was scrawled in blue ink. "Mom, please don't believe anything he says." The world tilted. My knees went weak, the paper fluttering from my hands. I stared toward the hallway where Mark had just disappeared, the silence now screaming louder than any noise could. And for the first time, I knew, this wasn't about exhaustion anymore. Something dark was hiding inside my home. Something, or someone, who wanted to keep the truth buried. As Sarah grips the paper and the deleted message replays in her mind, she realizes she can't trust the man she's lived with for 25 years. But the real question is, who else has been watching her this whole time? The house had grown colder. Not from the weather, but from something else. Something that crept through the walls, heavy and unseen, the way grief does when you try to ignore it. I stood there for a long time, staring at that note in my trembling hands, my son's handwriting, his plea. "Mom, please don't believe anything he says." Each word carved into my chest like a blade. The sound of footsteps upstairs made my skin tighten. Mark was still home, or at least, I thought he was. I didn't want to find out. My hands shook as I reached for the flashlight on the counter. The bulb flickered when I turned it on, just like my courage. That's when I heard it again. The whisper. The same low voice from before, calling faintly, not from the hall, but deeper. From the basement. The sound that started it all, was back. My throat went dry. Every instinct screamed for me to run, to get out, but something stronger, a mother's gut, that ached to protect, kept my feet rooted. I swallowed hard. "Okay," I whispered to myself, my voice trembling. Just one look, and then I'll know. As I took a shaky step toward the basement door, I glanced once more at the phone on the counter. Dark, silent, empty of the warning message that had vanished like it never existed. Before I could open the door, I paused. My heart ached in my chest, not just from fear, but from the exhaustion of everything. If you're listening to this right now, please, don't go anywhere. Stay with me till the end of this story, because what I'm about to tell you, no mother should ever have to live through. And if it's your birthday today, tell me in the comments. We'll celebrate it together, like one family, the kind that listens, the kind that never leaves. And please, like, subscribe, and share this story, so no one else ever feels alone in their silence. The basement door groaned as I opened it. Cold air spilled upward, brushing against my face like a warning. My flashlight beam shook across the stairs, each step sinking into darkness. One step. Another. The sound of my heartbeat echoed louder than my breath. The deeper I went, the heavier the air became. It smelled of damp wood and something metallic. I tightened my grip on the flashlight, every muscle in my body tensing. And then, I heard it. A whisper, this time clearer. "Mom." I froze. That voice. It wasn't coming from the corner, or the shadows. It came from behind a stack of old boxes, soft, trembling, terrified. I took one step closer. "Who's there?" My voice broke. "Please, come out." The light caught movement, small, quick. A shape hunched behind the crates. For a moment, I thought I was seeing things, the way the dark plays tricks on tired eyes. But then, the figure shifted, and I saw him. A boy. Barefoot. Dirty. His clothes torn, his face pale and hollow. His eyes met mine, wide, frightened, desperate. "Who are you?" I whispered, the words shaking. He flinched at the sound of my voice, then whispered back, "Don't send me back there. Please." My breath caught. His voice cracked on the last word, like he hadn't spoken in days. I stepped closer, kneeling despite the fear rising in my chest. "Back where?" He looked up at me, and my heart stopped. Because in that dim light, I saw something hauntingly familiar in his eyes. The same hazel shade. The same way his lashes curled at the corners. He looked like my son. But my son was in a hospital bed, miles away. Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. "Who are you?" I whispered again. His lips trembled. "I'm your son." I stumbled backward, the flashlight slipping from my hand, rolling across the floor and casting wild shadows against the walls. "No, no, you're not. My son." He sent me away, the boy interrupted, his voice breaking. He said it was for my own good. But they hurt me there. They hurt all of us. His words hung in the air, slicing through me. "Mark. He sent him away." I shook my head in disbelief. "That's impossible. My son's in the hospital. I saw him." "They told you that," the boy said, tears streaking through the dirt on his cheeks. "He told you that." The basement suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. The truth, or the pieces of it, twisted inside my chest like broken glass. Why would he? But I stopped myself. Because deep down, I already knew. Mark had been distant for months. Cold. Avoidant. I thought it was the stress. The hospital bills. The strain. But now, maybe it wasn't. Maybe he had been hiding something far worse. I reached out slowly, my hand trembling. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," I whispered. "You're safe here." The boy flinched at the sound of footsteps overhead, heavy ones. "Mark." His eyes widened in terror. "He's here," he whispered. "Please, don't let him take me back." My pulse thundered. I pressed my finger to my lips. Sure. The basement lights flickered. My flashlight dimmed. Dust fell from the ceiling as the footsteps moved above us, one room, then another, then stopping right at the top of the stairs. I held my breath. Then, the basement door creaked open. A shadow stretched down the stairs. Sarah's pulse stopped as she gripped the boy's hand. The truth was about to surface, but was she ready for what she'd find at the top of those steps? The air felt thick in that basement, like the walls themselves were holding their breath with me. My flashlight flickered again, and for a moment, darkness swallowed everything. My pulse pounded in my ears. I took a small step forward, my voice trembling. "Who's there?" Something shifted behind a stack of old boxes. The light steadied, and when it finally caught his face, I forgot how to breathe. It wasn't a monster. It wasn't a stranger. It was a boy, thin, dirt-streaked, trembling. His clothes were torn, his hair matted, and his eyes, those wide, terrified eyes, looked straight into mine. He whispered one word that nearly made my knees buckle. "Mom." I froze. My throat went dry. I could barely form a sound. What did you just say?" He stepped closer, voice shaking, tears glinting in the weak beam of the flashlight. "Mom, it's me. Please, don't send me back." For a second, I thought my mind had finally snapped. My real son was in the hospital, miles away. But this boy, he looked so much like him, like a faded memory pulled out of time. His eyes had that same softness, that same fear. "What are you talking about?" I whispered, barely recognizing my own voice. "Who are you?" He flinched at the question, wrapping his arms around himself like he expected to be hit. "You don't remember me, do you?" My heart twisted. I don't understand." Tears streamed down his face. Please don't send me back there. They'll hurt me again. I just wanted to see you, just once more." The room spun. My flashlight slipped from my hand and rolled across the floor, casting shaky shadows along the walls. My mind scrambled to find sense in this. Was he delusional? Was I? I took a hesitant step forward. "Listen, sweetheart, you must be confused. I don't know who you are. My son, he's in the hospital." He shook his head fiercely. "No, Mom. I'm your son too." The words hit me like a strike of lightning. I stumbled back, gripping the nearest shelf for balance. "That's not possible," I murmured, half to him, half to myself. "That's not possible." He moved closer, his voice soft, pleading. "You used to sing me to sleep when I was scared of the dark. You said monsters weren't real, but they are, Mom. They're real. And they wear people's faces." Every part of me screamed to run, to call someone, to wake up from this nightmare. But something deep, something instinctive, kept me still. A mother's instinct. Because the way he looked at me, it wasn't madness. It was recognition. I swallowed hard, whispering, "What did they do to you?" He looked down, trembling harder now. "You won't believe me." My voice cracked. "Try me." He lifted his gaze, eyes glistening with pain no child should ever carry. "They locked me away. Said I was broken. Said you didn't want me anymore." I felt my heart tear open. "That's not true," I said instantly, stepping forward, hands trembling as I reached for him. "That's not true. I would never." But he backed away. "That's what they told me. Every night. That you moved on, that you forgot me." I shook my head, tears blurring my sight. No, who told you that?" He didn't answer. He just looked past me, as if afraid someone else might be listening. And suddenly, I wasn't sure we were alone anymore. The air grew colder. Upstairs, a door creaked. The faintest echo of footsteps reached us, slow, deliberate. I turned back to the boy, whispering, "Who's here?" His lips quivered. "If they find me, they'll take me again." I pressed a finger to my lips, heart pounding. "Sure. Not this time. I promise, you're safe with me." I pulled him close, wrapping my arms around him. For a moment, he stiffened like he didn't know what comfort felt like. Then slowly, he melted into the embrace, sobbing quietly against my shoulder. And as I held that trembling boy in my arms, I knew, whatever truth hid in this darkness, I would uncover it. Because no mother should ever have to ask herself, which child did I lose, and which one did I forget? The boy's cries slowly faded into quiet shivers against my shoulder. My heart thudded so loud it drowned the creaks of the house. I could feel his ribs under my hands, too sharp, too fragile. Whoever he was, he hadn't been safe for a long time. When he finally lifted his head, his voice was a whisper, broken and raw. "You don't believe me, do you?" I brushed a strand of hair from his face. I don't know what to believe right now. But I believe you're scared. And I believe someone hurt you. That's enough for me. He nodded slowly, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. They said if I ever came home, you'd send me back. Who said that? I asked softly. He looked toward the basement stairs, eyes wide, haunted. The people at the place. What place? The one Dad took me to. I froze. The words hit like ice water. What did you say? He hesitated, like he knew he shouldn't have said it. He said it was for my own good. That I'd get better there. But it wasn't a hospital, Mom. It was a place where they fix broken kids. Only, I wasn't broken. My knees felt weak. I leaned against the cold concrete wall for support. Your dad. He nodded again, eyes welling with tears. He told them I was bad. That I needed to learn to be quiet, to listen, to stop making you cry. I shook my head, my stomach twisting. That's not true. None of that's true. His small, cracked voice trembled. They locked us in rooms. If we cried, they made us stay longer. If we screamed, they said we were dangerous. My vision blurred. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. No. He reached out, gripping my arm gently, almost like he was trying to comfort me. It's okay now. I got out. I just wanted to see you again. But how? I managed to ask. He glanced toward the small basement window, its glass dirty and cracked. One night, they forgot to lock the gate. I ran. I didn't stop until I found the house. But everything looked different. I swallowed hard, trying to piece the puzzle together. How long were you there? I don't know, he whispered. Long enough to forget what the sun felt like. A lump formed in my throat so tight I could barely breathe. My husband's face flashed in my mind, his calm lies, the late nights, the way he brushed off questions about our son's care facility. Oh my God. I whispered, you said your dad took you there, when? He hesitated. After the accident. What accident? He looked down at his hands, fingers trembling. The night I fell down the stairs. You were gone that night. Dad said it was my fault. My breath caught. I remembered that night. I'd been at the hospital with our youngest. My husband had called, said everything was fine, that our older son was clumsy, that he'd just slipped. He said he was taking care of it. But this boy, the one standing in front of me, remembered something different. Did he hurt you? I asked, voice breaking. He didn't answer right away. Then, softly, he got angry. He said I was making things harder for you. That you didn't need another reason to cry. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I even felt them. Oh my God, I whispered again. He looked up at me with eyes too old for his age. You didn't know, did you? I shook my head, barely able to speak. No. I didn't know. I thought he was helping you. He took a small step closer, voice trembling. You would have come for me, right? My chest cracked open. Yes, I whispered, choking on the word. I would have torn the world apart to find you. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the old freezer in the corner and the distant ticking of the clock upstairs. Finally, I said, you're safe now. I promise. He gave me a small, broken smile. You always said that when I was scared. I brushed his cheek gently, trying to hide my shaking hands. And I meant it. I still do. But inside, my mind was a storm. If what this boy said was true, then my husband had been hiding something unthinkable. He had lied about our son's care, his condition, everything. I looked up toward the ceiling, imagining him sleeping peacefully upstairs, unaware that his secrets were unraveling in the basement. I turned back to the boy and whispered, you're never going back there. Not while I'm alive. He nodded slowly, and for the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Hope. But beneath that hope, something else lingered, fear. As if he knew this wasn't over yet. And deep down, I felt it too. Because the house above us wasn't as quiet as it had been a moment. I held my breath as the sound from upstairs grew clearer, slow, deliberate footsteps crossing the living room floor. The boy's hand gripped mine tightly, his knuckles white. For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us was heavy, thick with something unspoken. He whispered, "Is it him?" My heart pounded in my chest so loud I could barely hear my own voice when I said, "Stay here. Don't make a sound." I crept toward the stairs, each step groaning beneath my weight. The house, once our home, now felt like an intruder itself, every shadow alive, every sound accusing. My fingers brushed the wall as I climbed, searching for balance, for courage. The light in the hallway flickered, and the moment I reached the top, I saw it, his jacket, hanging on the hook by the door. His shoes by the mat, wet from the rain. He was home. For a second, my breath stopped. My mind raced back to the boy's words. He said if I came home, you'd send me back. I couldn't let him know. Not yet. The kitchen light was on. I could hear the faint clinking of glass, the fridge opening and closing. His voice followed, calm, casual, almost rehearsed. "You're back early." I froze in the hallway. He stepped into view, wiping his hands on a towel, his expression unreadable. "I didn't hear you come in." I tried to steady my voice. I couldn't sleep." He smiled faintly, though his eyes didn't. "I figured you'd still be at the hospital." I forced a nod. "They discharged me earlier than expected." His gaze lingered on me for a moment, searching, assessing. Then, casually, he reached for a glass of water. "You look pale. Everything okay?" Everything inside me screamed to say no. To tell him what I'd found in the basement. To demand the truth. But the boy's voice echoed in my head. "He said you'd send me back." So I lied. "I'm fine." He smiled again, too easily. "Good. You've been through a lot lately." "We both have." My throat tightened. I could feel the distance between his words and the truth. Every syllable felt like a knife dipped in sugar. "Where's our daughter?" I asked, pretending to sound casual. "Sleeping," he said. "You should rest too. You look exhausted." He turned his back to put the glass in the sink, and that small moment of space, of safety, was enough for my mind to race. The boy downstairs. The truth he'd told me. The man standing just a few feet away. I swallowed hard. "You said the care facility called last week," I began slowly. "You said our son was improving." He hesitated, his shoulders stiffening. "That's what they told me." I stepped closer. "They called you?" He turned around, the smile gone. "Why are you asking me like that?" "Because I found something," I whispered. "And I think you need to tell me the truth." His jaw tightened. "What did you find?" I took a breath I didn't have the strength to take. "A boy. In our basement." For a split second, I saw something flicker across his face. Shock, then fear, then something colder. "What?" "You heard me." My voice trembled, but I didn't stop. "He said you sent him away. That you hurt him. That you called it care." He took a slow step forward. "You've been under a lot of stress lately. You're imagining things again." That word, again, cut deep. He'd used it before. Every time I questioned him. Every time I got too close to the truth. "I'm not imagining anything," I said, my voice breaking. "He's downstairs. Right now." For a moment, he said nothing. Then, almost too quietly, "You need to calm down." "Don't you dare tell me to calm down," I snapped. "You lied to me. You lied about everything." He slammed his hand on the counter, the sound echoing through the kitchen. "You think I wanted to do this? You think I had a choice?" The words hung in the air like smoke. I stared at him, my heart twisting. What did you do?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "You weren't here. You didn't see what he became. He needed discipline. Structure. You were too soft on him. I did what I had to do to protect this family." My hands shook. "Protect? You destroyed this family." He turned away, breathing hard, gripping the edge of the sink. "You wouldn't understand." "Then make me," I demanded. Silence. "Finally," he said, "if you really found someone downstairs, it's not our son. Our son's gone. And you're losing your mind." The words hit harder than any slap. My body went numb. You're lying, I whispered. You know you're lying. He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed his coat and keys. I'm going for a drive. When I get back, I want you to be calm. And I want that basement locked. He walked past me, the scent of his cologne trailing behind like poison. The door shut. I stood there, frozen, unable to move. My knees gave out and I sank to the floor, sobbing quietly. I could still hear the echo of his voice, sharp, calculated, hollow. Downstairs, the floor creaked. The boy. Still waiting. Still scared. I wiped my tears and whispered to myself, no more lies. Not tonight. Then I rose, took one last look at the door, and turned toward the stairs leading down, back to the truth I could no longer ignore. The house was silent again, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that hurts, that presses against your skin like cold air. I could still hear the echo of the front door slamming shut. It felt final, like something inside this home had just cracked open and would never close again. I moved slowly toward the basement stairs, my fingers brushing along the banister for balance. Each step creaked beneath my weight, and in that moment it was as if the house itself was whispering, warning me not to go any further. But I couldn't stop now. Not after what I'd heard. Not after all the lies. The beam of the flashlight trembled as I reached the bottom. The boy was still there, sitting beside the stack of old boxes, his knees pulled up to his chest. He looked up, eyes wide and wet with tears. Is he gone? He asked. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. He looked down, fidgeting with his hands. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just wanted to see you again. My heart broke in slow motion. You didn't do anything wrong, I whispered. None of this is your fault. I crouched beside him, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. His skin was cold, his face pale. There was a bruise near his jawline, faint, but visible. My hands trembled as I touched it. Who did this to you? He hesitated. They did. The people at that place. And Dad, he knew. Tears burned my eyes. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't. But the truth was already there, heavy, undeniable. I took a deep breath. Listen to me, sweetheart. I'm going to fix this. I promise you, I'll never let anyone hurt you again. He looked up at me, his small voice breaking. Do you really mean that? I nodded, holding him close. Yes. I do. You're my son. My heart. My whole reason for breathing. We stayed like that for a while, two broken souls clinging to each other in the dark, until I heard the one sound I was praying not to hear, the front door opening again. My breath caught. His car hadn't even left the driveway. He hadn't gone anywhere. He'd been watching. Waiting. The boy's eyes widened. Mom. Sure, I whispered. Hide. Now. He darted behind the old shelves just as footsteps echoed above us. Slow, measured, deliberate. The basement door creaked open, and the light from upstairs cut through the darkness. His voice followed, calm, but with that edge I'd come to know too well. Sarah? Who are you talking to? My heart raced. No one, I said, forcing steadiness into my tone. I was just checking something. He stepped down a few stairs, his silhouette growing larger in the doorway. You're shaking, he said. Why are you shaking? I gripped the railing. Because you've been lying to me, I whispered. He stopped, his hand tightening on the banister. What did you say? You heard me, I said, louder this time. You've been lying for months. About him. About everything. His jaw tightened. You're losing it again, Sarah. You need help. The anger inside me burned hotter. Don't you dare. Don't you dare make me sound crazy again. He came closer, the wood creaking beneath his feet. You're tired, confused. Stop. I shouted, my voice cracking. Stop treating me like I don't see what's right in front of me. He was only a few steps away now. And what is that, her? What do you think you see? I looked him dead in the eyes. Our son. Down here. Terrified because of you. He froze. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. For a moment, the only sound was our breathing. Then, From behind the boxes, a small, trembling voice broke the silence. "Dad." His face drained of color. He turned toward the sound, his hands trembling. "No," he whispered. "That's not possible." The boy stepped out of the shadows, his eyes red, his clothes dirty and torn. "You left me there," he said quietly. "You said you'd come back. But you never did." For the first time, I saw fear in my husband's eyes, real, unfiltered fear. He took a step back, shaking his head. "You don't understand. I was trying to help you." The boy's voice rose, trembling but fierce. "You lied." "I didn't. You said Mom didn't want me anymore." Silence. My husband looked at me, his expression desperate. "Sarah, please, I was trying to protect you from him. From what he'd done." I stared at him, numb. "From what you did, you mean?" His voice cracked. "He hurt our daughter. I saw it. I couldn't let it happen again." I blinked, stunned. The room tilted. "What are you saying?" "He was jealous. You always loved him more." He pushed her down the stairs. She broke her arm. "You remember that?" My heart pounded. The memory came flooding back, the fall, the screams, the confusion. But I'd never known how it really happened. The boy shook his head, tears streaming down his cheeks. "That's not true. I was trying to help her." She tripped. I looked between them, my breath catching in my throat. I didn't know what to believe anymore. But then I saw it. The way my husband's eyes darted, the twitch in his jaw, the guilt bleeding through every word he tried to hide. "You made him your excuse," I whispered. "You turned your own son into a monster to cover your mistakes." He stepped forward, desperate. "Sarah, you don't understand." "No," I said, my voice low and final. "I understand perfectly." For a long moment, none of us moved. The boy's quiet sobs filled the air. My husband stood there, trembling, staring at the two of us like strangers. And then, without a word, I reached for the boy's hand. "Come with me," I whispered. "Sarah, don't," my husband warned. But I didn't stop. I led my son up the stairs, step by step, never looking back. The whole house felt different now, like it was finally showing me the truth it had hidden for so long. At the top of the stairs, I turned back one last time. He stood there at the bottom, his face pale, his eyes dark and hollow. And in that stillness, I knew, whatever we once were as a family, was gone forever. The morning light filtered through the curtains, pale and cold, the kind of light that doesn't warm, only reveals. I stood in the kitchen, the same place where so many of our mornings had begun, but this one felt different. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a storm, when everything inside you feels both destroyed and strangely clear. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the clock, and the sound of my own heartbeat. Every second felt heavy, like time itself was holding its breath. My son sat at the table, wrapped in one of my sweaters, his hands around a cup of cocoa that had long gone cold. His eyes were distant, tired, but peaceful, for the first time in a long time. I walked over and brushed a hand through his hair. "You're safe now," I said softly. "No one's ever going to hurt you again." He looked up at me. "What about him?" I hesitated. The question hung between us like smoke. I wanted to tell him the truth, that his father wasn't the man I once believed he was, that the person who'd sworn to protect us had become the reason we needed protection. But instead, I said, "He's not coming with us. Not this time." He nodded slowly, his small hand finding mine. "Can we go far away?" "Yes," I whispered. "We'll go somewhere new. Somewhere no one knows us. We'll start over." I moved quietly through the house, gathering only what we needed. A few clothes, the documents, a photograph of the kids before everything went wrong. Every object I touched felt like it carried a memory, a reminder of the lies we had lived inside. The laughter that had been rehearsed, the smiles that had been forced, the love that had turned into something sharp and cruel. When I stepped into our bedroom, the scent of him still lingered, faint, like the ghost of what used to be. I paused, looking at the bed where we had once dreamed together, where we had once believed in forever. And then I saw it, His watch, lying on the dresser, still ticking. For a moment, I almost stopped. Almost. But then I remembered the look in my son's eyes when he whispered, "You said you'd come back, but you never did." I picked up the watch, stared at it, and placed it gently in the drawer. That part of my life was over. Downstairs, the boy was waiting by the door, clutching his small backpack. He looked at me with a mixture of fear and hope. "Are we really leaving?" "Yes," I said, opening the door. "And we're not coming back." The air outside was cool, carrying the faint scent of rain. The sky was heavy with grey clouds, but to me, it felt like freedom. I started the car, my hands trembling on the steering wheel, and for the first time in years, I didn't look back at the house. The road stretched ahead, long and winding, leading to a future I couldn't yet see, but it was ours. Every mile we drove put distance between us and the ghosts that had been haunting that basement. After a while, my son leaned against the window, his voice small and sleepy. "Mom." "Yes, sweetheart. Do you think he'll come after us?" I took a deep breath. "Maybe. But he won't find us." He was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "Good." We drove in silence, the hum of the tires mixing with the rhythm of our breathing. The tension that had once gripped my chest began to ease. For the first time, I didn't feel trapped. I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel broken. As the sun began to set, painting the horizon in soft shades of orange and gold, I reached out and turned on the radio. A familiar song filled the car, one I hadn't heard in years. It made me smile, just a little. I looked at my son and said, "You know what? Let's make this our song. Every time we hear it, we'll remember today, the day we started over." He smiled for the first time that day, a real, pure smile that reached his eyes. And in that moment, I realized something. Betrayal had taken so much from us. It had shattered what we thought was unbreakable. But it hadn't taken everything. Because what remained, what was left standing after all the lies and pain, was us. We might have lost our home, our trust, our old life, but we still had each other. And that was enough to start again. The town we found wasn't much, a cluster of quiet streets lined with old trees, a single gas station, a grocery store, and a small school. But it felt like peace. Or at least, the closest thing to it I'd ever known. We rented a small cottage on the edge of town. The windows faced a line of hills that glowed gold at sunset, and at night, you could hear the wind moving through the trees. It was nothing like the city, no sirens, no shouting, no memories lingering in every corner. My son loved it immediately. He'd run through the backyard barefoot, chasing fireflies, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years. I would watch him from the porch, coffee in hand, and think, maybe this is what healing looks like. I started working part-time at a small diner by the highway. The owner, a kind woman named Diane, reminded me of my mother, warm eyes, always calling everyone sweetheart. She never asked about my past. Just gave me a uniform and said, "Start fresh, honey. Everyone deserves one." For the first time in a long time, I slept without nightmares. Or maybe I was just too tired to dream. But one night, something strange happened. It was late, past midnight. I woke up to the faint sound of tapping, like knuckles against glass. I sat up, my heart suddenly racing. The room was dark, except for the streetlight flickering outside. I listened again. Tap, tap, tap. I got up, walked slowly to the window, and pulled back the curtain. Nothing. Just the wind moving through the branches. I told myself it was nothing, maybe a branch, maybe a loose shutter. But as I turned to go back to bed, I saw something that made my blood run cold. On the fogged-up glass of the window, faint but visible, were 3 words written by a finger. "Still watching you." I froze. My first instinct was to check on my son. I ran into his room. He was fast asleep, clutching his blanket, his chest rising and falling peacefully. I stood there for a long time, shaking, staring at him, trying to convince myself this was some cruel coincidence. The next morning, I tried to wash it off, but the marks didn't come off easily, like the message had been etched into the glass. My hands trembled as I scrubbed, whispering to myself, "He can't find us. He doesn't know where we are." At the diner that day, I barely spoke. Diane noticed. You okay, sweetheart? Yeah, I lied. Just didn't sleep well. But that night, when I locked up and drove home, I had the strangest feeling. Like a pair of eyes were following my car in the dark. The rearview mirror became my enemy. I couldn't stop checking it, over and over, expecting to see headlights right behind me. When I finally pulled into the driveway, I sat in the car for a while, engine still running, just staring at the cottage. Every shadow seemed deeper, every sound louder. I stepped out slowly, keys clenched tight in my hand like a weapon. That's when I heard it, a faint laugh. It came from somewhere near the trees. A low, mocking sound that carried on the wind for just a second before fading. I turned, scanning the dark, but saw nothing. Just the night. Just silence. I told myself it was my imagination, that trauma plays tricks, that maybe I was just scared of ghosts that no longer existed. But deep down, I knew that laugh. I'd heard it before. It was his. I went inside, locked every door, checked every window. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely turn the key. I stood in the living room, staring out into the darkness, and whispered to myself, "We're safe. We're safe. We're safe." But the voice in my head whispered back, "Are you sure?" The morning after that night, the world felt strangely still. The sunlight poured in through the kitchen window, but it didn't feel warm. It felt like light that didn't belong here, too bright, too pure, for a place that still carried shadows. I made breakfast in silence. My son hummed softly at the table, drawing something on a napkin, a house, a tree, two stick figures holding hands. He smiled and said, "That's us, Mom." I forced a smile back, my heart tightening in my chest. "It's beautiful, honey," I said. But inside, I couldn't stop hearing that laugh. That haunting, distant sound that followed me all the way from the old house. For the next few days, nothing happened. No strange sounds, no messages on the windows. The air started to feel lighter again, and I convinced myself it had been stress, exhaustion, paranoia, leftover fear from everything we'd been through. Maybe this really was our new beginning. That night, after putting my son to bed, I stayed up late, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. The refrigerator hummed softly behind me. The sound was familiar now, oddly comforting, like a heartbeat inside the house. I got up to pour myself a glass of water. When I opened the fridge, the cold air brushed against my face, and for a moment, I felt peaceful. Then, from somewhere behind me, I heard it. A single, soft exhale. Like someone standing just inches away. I froze. The glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. I didn't move. Didn't even breathe. Slowly, I turned around. No one was there. But the air felt different, heavier. I could smell something faintly metallic, like rain on old iron. The lights flickered once, and my heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. And then I saw it. On the kitchen wall, in the faint reflection of the window glass, there was movement. Not clear, just a silhouette. Someone standing behind me. I spun around, nothing. Empty. The sound of my son's small footsteps came from the hallway. "Mom." His voice was sleepy, innocent. "Why are you crying?" I didn't even realize I was. Tears had started to fall silently down my cheeks. I knelt down, hugged him tightly, and whispered, "It's okay, baby. Everything's okay." But as I held him, my eyes drifted past his shoulder, to the refrigerator door. And that's when I saw it. Frost had gathered across the metal surface, thin and delicate, but through it, letters were carved, jagged, uneven, like written by a trembling hand. I came home too. The words burned into me like a knife twisting slowly. I turned off the lights, picked up my son, and carried him to my room. I locked the door, sat against it, holding him close until his breathing slowed back into sleep. The house was silent again. Only the faint hum of the refrigerator filled the space. The same sound that had started it all, the same sound that had brought me back to this moment. I stared at the dark ceiling and whispered, "I came home broken, but at least I came home free." But even as I said it, a quiet thought echoed through my mind, the one I refused to believe. What if I wasn't the only one who did? The wind pressed softly against the windows. The hum grew louder. And in the reflection of the glass, just for a second, I thought I saw someone smiling back at me,